thinking that I'm at 200% of what I was yesterday because you, my listener, were such a good person as to tell a friend about Nooga Radio and David Toulis here live every weekday on 92.7 FM and 95.3 FM HD4. You report and the world decides. And that is my slogan, and I mean it, and I'm sticking with it. And I have a question now, but listen, if you have a question for me or a comment or an objection, maybe I've got something wrong. Maybe I have made a mistake. Let me know about that. I'd be glad to fix it, and glad to have some argument. If there's something that you think I'm sorely amiss about, then a little rubbing of the ideas together to make some heat would be in order. I don't know why the French word occurred to me, frissonner, and I'm remembering. I think frissonner is to rub together, right? You rub together two things and make a little bit of warmth. Now, maybe it's a warm day today, and maybe we don't need more warmth, but I'm certainly willing to chat with you about really anything. And the number is 800-8949. I give you permission to put that in your phone under Toulis or Nooga Radio. That's our studio line. I argue that you should love your neighbor and buy local. And I know there are faults. You could say there are some faults in thought in making the argument, but it is a provisional argument only in pencil. And I am the smartest guy with a bow tie and can be excused if sometimes I overreach. Okay, it is here an effort in suggestion, and the bow tie is my favorite one. So I'm in high form today, and I want you to be in high form on account of my being in high form. The red bow tie with the red ink splotch on it, and for some reason, even though I dither with the two wings on either side of the knot to make them look right, this tie just never looks right, and yet it's my favorite bow tie, and because it seems to go with several shirts that I have. I wear used shirts and recycled jackets, and I have I'm a very thrifty man. I pack my own lunch, so I'm very much one of you. Though I must say I don't drink beer. I'm not a beer drinker, and don't drink much wine, though I probably should drink some wine for the enhancement of the digestive processes. Love your neighbor and buy local is the pitch I'm making. Now we have some to do today in Mayor Berke's office. I was making a video today of our correspondent, our broadcast journalist Marie Mott, and had in company today also Jay Griffin, age 16, who's thinking about going into the radio journalism business, but doesn't like to talk. So we've got some obstacles and hurdles to work with on this young man from a noted patriotic and constitutional family in north of Chattanooga. Now, we were at the city attorney's office. We were at the personnel office trying to get the record. Well, should I say Marie Mott trying to get the record for an officer in a story that we've been following here at Nooga Radio, for which I've taken the coverage of which I've taken quite a bit of fire from conservative people who are law and order types and who believe in executive government and believe. And one man was even went so far as to say that that the girl who didn't immediately obey the cop to get out of the car, that I'm talking here about Kennedy Gray, the 14-year-old daughter of Avery Gray, a very hardworking woman in kind of with a very difficult existence. She just recently lost her job, rides used cars that leak transmission fluid and oil and have problems. And hardworking family. The dad's a trucker. They're just a struggling family. Okay, the Avery Gray family in much struggle. The writer, some good, well-intended blowhard, if you will, on Facebook, said she easily could have gotten shot for not responding. Somehow, as if that would be a proper thing to have expected, right? That the officer would do is shoot this girl who reached back to get the things that she was to get to vacate the car because she'd been told, "Hey, we're taking this car from you. Get your things." And she was doing that, and the officer maybe should have shot her for doing that because his life was endangered. This kind of thinking is simply I'm appalled by that line of thinking, and because there's some presuppositions behind it, and there are there are more than 500,000 concealed armed carriers in Tennessee. And if I'm remembering right, the last time I looked up the number of concealed armed carriers or permit holders, there were about maybe 30,000 in Hamilton County. And the question I'm asking is, what would happen if Mayor Berke, who is somehow above the problems of his department, if he said, I really, this really is my department, and I really do have control over it, and I set policy in this department, and the officers do what I tell them to do, even though what they've done is that's amiss, is respected and approved by the manual. I'm going to trust the people of Chattanooga. I'm not going to survey and supervise them anymore, and I'm going to also particularly respect Title 55 and the limits in the transportation statute to aim enforcement authority of the state upon only people involved in transportation and not private users such as Diana Watt, who was dragged from her car by other officers, even though Officer Wright, who dragged Avery Gray's daughter from the car, was there. We have a separate officer dragging this woman by her extremities, as Marie Mott says, from her car. And what if the mayor says, we're gonna start over? We're not gonna have a police department. We're going to save $75 million in the budget next year, right? We'll do it for next year since we've passed a budget, and let Sheriff Jim Hammond have the authority for enforcement, and let him hire these officers and train them properly, because the sheriff is responsible to the people, and Sheriff Hammond is facing re-election. There's an unknown Democrat candidate, a man whom no one seems to know anything about, running against him, and Sheriff Hammond, I believe, is a Republican, and is seeking another term in office. We'll let the sheriff handle law enforcement and peacekeeping through his very fine group of deputies, which he says would be underrepresented, too few in number, unable to enforce the peace, to keep the peace, and enforce statute in Chattanooga proper, or in the other municipal corporations such as Red Bank or Saudi Daisy, without having more on his staff. And that is certainly true. But what if there were no police department? What would happen if they were abolished? Everyone was told to go home, turn in your webbing, turn in your taser, turn in your armor plate if it's city property, turn in your handgun and the multitudinous magazines that you have for combat situations down in the projects. Or in Hickson, and find better work, because we don't need your services any longer, and we are going to see what happens. Well, let's just say Mayor Berke did that. What would happen? Now, I asked a young man this question yesterday, and I did not get an answer, and I'm not satisfied that I didn't get an answer. What's your answer? Maybe we can fill in to help Jay Griffin out to explain his perspective, his view, his prediction of what would happen if the police department were abolished. Got an answer? Give me a call. 800-8949, 800-8949. What do you think would happen if Mayor Andy Berke said, enough is enough. We're not going to have officers accused of rape. We're not going to have these abusive transportation stops. We're not going to have transportation stops at all anymore. If they were to be enforced, let it be the sheriff to enforce them, or the Tennessee Highway Patrol, which has a commercial jurisdiction, that being a commercial title of the Tennessee Code annotated. I'm done in enforcing the transportation code on private people. I'm done with it. I'm done. And so that lets me cut half the force right there, and the other half, well, he's going to have confidence, obviously, in the people of Hamilton County and the people who reside as residents and taxpayers and members of the corporation, residents of Chattanooga. What would happen? Would there be chaos in the streets? Would there be dead bodies of people run down in intersections? Would there be fires lit by arsonists? Would the projects be aflame? The government slum, right, where people are kept in a state of dependency for generations. Would there be mayhem? Would there be chaos, violence, wild shootings? Would snipers be manning tops of bridges shooting into traffic? Would that happen? Would there be buses overturned? Would taxi cabs be commandeered by young thugs with Glocks hanging from their dragging pants? Is that what would happen? Would the gangs, of whom we're told there are hundreds and hundreds of members, would they suddenly be empowered? And would they come after you? Would they come up your street in your nice neighborhood with your $250,000 mortgaged house and pull up into your yard and say, well, there are no cops anymore, we can do what we want? Is that what would happen? Would the people who are the residents, would they clamor for the mayor to restore order? Would they demand the reaffirmation of the mayor's army and have them all put back? Is that what would happen? Would there be a call for hired gunmen to make order? What would happen? What would the city corporation do? What would the people do? Would there be plumes of smoke drifting over areas of East Ridge, over Saudi Daisy, over Chattanooga, where there's a lot of renting, right? A lot of condos and duplexes? Will those places be just fire zones of combat, domestic combat, and city combat of the kind police officers are prepared to deal with, right? Is that what would happen? Well, answer the question. Go ahead. You can answer the question. And the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. I would say that with, let's just say 30,000 armed permit holders in Chattanooga and many tens of thousands of more that don't worry about that unconstitutional statute and who risk prosecution to carry a weapon on their person, apart from the wonderful and miraculous permission of the Department of Safety and Homeland Security. You have, let's say, 40 or 50,000 people who are equipped in a city of 170,000. The county, I'm not sure how many more thousands live in the county, but the city has about 170,000 residents, and many of them are armed, right? The county, the larger body, has that 25, I think it's 25,000, maybe 23,000 concealed carry permit holders, gun carriers, right? Gun carriers. And would there be chaos in the streets? Well, the answer is, what's the answer? The answer is no, there wouldn't be. Why not? Why would there not be? Well, let's just say that you have an ending of a large police department, a military force, and the turning in of weapons and cars and whatnot. You would have suddenly a marketplace. Okay, there would be people who would step in. There would be businesses that would say, "I offer this service." People who write apps, probably in pretty short order, would be able to have a very inexpensive app that you could have on your phone, where you would call. You would just simply have the face of the phone open with the circle of the crime or problem that you have. And if you're a member of one network or the other, you just simply tap, flat tire, woman flat tire, children in car, and a fellow member of that particular network would be there in 5 minutes to help you. Or you're saying, I'm a homeowner here in East Ridge or maybe Red Bank, and I've had a burglary. And within 2 or 3 minutes, people who are your neighbors or who are near you with that app would come and offer you solace and help, and they would start asking questions. And the more ambitious among them, the smarter ones among them, would say, well, this is my afternoon's project. We're going to sniff out where these things may be. And you'll have people who become specialists, right? They become specialists in finding stolen goods. They know all the pawn shops. They know all the fencers. You had someone who learned his trade maybe because he spent some time in prison and knows the system, right? But who is now a repentant Christian, and even a deacon in his church has that business of finding lost goods. You're going to have a marketplace where people will step in to provide services. And if there's violence afoot, if there is a bank robbery or a rapist or a murderer, believe me, if there's a murder and that goes out on the app, you're going to have hundreds of people suddenly looking for somebody, right? That you're going to have the whole town involved. And why is that? Because everybody has a stake in public order. Everybody has a stake in peace. When you professionalize peacekeeping and delegate to experts and former military men this function, you become kind of helpless. I know we've been trained to be helpless, just like we've been trained to be helpless and hapless in the era of public schools. But whenever you delegate something, you sort of forget the function, right? You forget how to do the thing that comes naturally to any decent man, any good man, any man with a high school diploma can do the things that policing requires, that peacekeeping on the private side would require. And there would not be chaos in the streets. And why not? Why would there not be suddenly mayhem? Do you think that people don't commit crimes today because there are police? Is that why people don't commit crimes? 800-8949, 800-8949. Well, no, people don't commit crimes because they have an interest to not commit crimes, and they're generally good. Most people are good people. Even though I say that, even though Christianity would say all men are sinners and all men deserve damnation, right? We're all worms before God. But in other words, the fall affected every faculty of man, and every man deserves eternal punishment and death. He deserves it. So here, the theory, right, the religious theory that holds to that truth, on the other hand, says in seeming contradiction that no, society is generally amicable and peaceful and amiable, and there is a thing called community of interests. And so maybe even the communitarians whom are among us in the thick are right. And that is called family of interest or similarity of interest, and people generally make things work. That's called, there's a word for that. It's called the free market, right? If you have a free market, there's no coercion at all, except where there is a crime or a fraud or a tort or a wrong or a theft or a burglary or a rape or a robbery. Those are where the magistrate comes into play, right? And the sheriff, whom we have here, Jim Hammond, is all about enforcing the orders of the court, right? The Hammond court model is biblical, and the society in view in fair Christian teaching, if you can get any of it here in town, is that the judge and the magistrate are there. There's an officer of the court, and there is no other civil magistrate, right? There is no other Romans 13 authority. There is no executive. There is no legislative branch. Why do you need a legislative branch when the law is already there, right? You've got God's law, you have common law, and you have, of course, the rules of equity, which are called, in the Bible, they're called lex talionis. That is to say, equity, right? You know, stripe for stripe, wound for wound, burn for burn, tooth for tooth, limb for limb. That's what equity means. That's simply that if there's a wrong, that the compensation is equal to it, not less and not more. In any system that rejects that, you're going to have inequity. And that our whole system in Chattanooga and Hamilton County in Tennessee and in every place beyond in this country is riddled with rejection of that principle. And wrong injustice is part of state administration. It's built into state administration so much so that you can't even see it. You can't even see it. And pray tell, where might a sermon be uttered somewhere in a pulpit in Hamilton County that points that out? You don't hear sermons like that. And because of that, Christians are in many ways indifferent to these great issues that David Toulis, I hear David Toulis in the news business, I cover, right? I cover these issues. I cover these stories, as does Marie Mott. Marie Mott, the intrepid broadcast journalist. And you'll find her all around. She's all on Facebook. She's in social media. She's a maven of social media. But we have her here also 11 o'clock Monday. 11 o'clock Monday here on 92.7 FM and 95.3 FM HD4. You report like Marie Mott. Marie Mott reports, and you decide. You, my listener, report. Do it on Facebook. And send me the video. Send me the video or like me and contact me, David Toulis. There would not be chaos in the streets if police were abolished. There just simply wouldn't be. And why? Because of people like you. You, my listener, the woman at home, the widow. You know, you're a prayer warrior for me. Thank you. And there are other people who are just in their private lives. They're good people. They're decent people, and they keep their eyes open. If there's something going on wrong in the neighborhood, that person will see it, okay? That person will make a record and tell the proper authority. And I think Mayor Berke should really take control of his department. And the city council in Chattanooga, I strongly urge that its members take control because they represent us. They are our representatives, and that is the legislative branch. We have that, and so there needs to be, on their part, since they are an existing authority, they need to be appealed to bring peace into the streets and to end gangland violence. Let's bring an end to all gangland violence here in Chattanooga. Let's end it in God's promise, in God's care. And it's not going to happen for a while because you, my listener, are just sitting on your duck, maybe, right? Well, I'm working on that. David Tulis News Radio, brought to you by Nuganomics.com, the website for the man who matters, Nuganomics.com. Nuganomics.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
The GBI is trying to track down a missing person. Julie